Boom. Love that tune.
Class, isn't it?
Absolutely love it. Welcome. Good evening. It's Thursday, slightly different to normal, and it's Fan Zone Live. If you're watching it live, if you're watching a repeat, it's obviously not live, but we've recorded it live. Myself, Jim Hamilton, and my partner in crime, Freddie Burns, we're on RugbyPass for Fan Zone Live, and we've made it. We've made it to the final week of the Guinness Six Nations, Freddie. But before we get into the Six Nations, congratulations, Premiership Player of the Month.
I know, mate. I know. Yeah, doing it for the over 30s, mate. So obviously was a nice accolade to get. And then that picture there's me leading the team out for my 200th Premiership game, mate. So it's been a good month for me. I've enjoyed having a little run while Fordy's been away. So yeah, just enjoyed it, mate. But you know what it's like? I know it's the old cliche, but when you're a fly half, you're sort of only as good as those around you, mate. And I think the pack, especially at Leicester this month, has been unbelievable. Guys like Jasper Visa, Julian Montoya, these kind of guys, unbelievable. So it's just, I've been in the armchair, Jim. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I've been watching it. Don't you worry. It's looked a comfortable armchair as well, considering what's been happening at Leicester in recent years. And I've not done enough research on the salary cap stuff, Fred. I don't expect you to answer it. So we'll maybe talk about that next week and see where it goes, because I've had a busy week. It's obviously, like we mentioned, the last week of the Six Nations. But just quickly, Freddie, on Leicester, I know we're going to chat on Sunday after the games as well, but just while we've got you, can you go all the way this season or not? What's the general consensus? Has that been spoken about, that Leicester title contenders, or is it like Steve says, just next game?
Like, to be honest with you, of course we know where we're sat in the table. You know, we know that we've, strung together, a decent amount of wins in that. But genuinely, I mean this, we still feel like there's a lot of growth. London Irish at the weekend, mate, it wasn't a good performance from us. That said, we obviously still got the win in the bonus point, which is great. But we're under no illusions that we go to Exeter next weekend. We've still got to go Quins away. Obviously, we lost to Sarries away the other week. Who else we got? We still got to go to places like Newcastle. These places that are real testing places to go. So we're in a good place, but we're under no illusions that it's a monumental effort to get there at the end. So we're just trucking on, trying to get better week on week, and we'll see where we end up. Did I answer enough, Jim, or not?
Well, it's the answer that we thought of a player that's still playing. They're not going to say, yeah, we're definitely going to win it. We're 100% going to win the Prem. We're probably going to win Europe as well. So that's the answer that we thought, and that's the answer that we got. And I'm happy with that answer, Freddie, is what I should say, because we're going to talk about the Guinness Six Nations. Fred, we are into the final week. It's sped by. It's been a quality championship. There's been drama. There's been some great performances. But it's kind of mapped out, right, how we thought. How a lot of people thought the Six Nations was going to go. We knew it was going to go down to the final week. I say we knew. We thought, and many people thought, it was going to go down to the final week with England being in Paris for the Grand Slam decider for France to win it. Let's not talk about that game because it is the last game. We can do a little bit of a build-up. What have you made of the Six Nations on a whole?
No, I think it's been an unbelievable tournament. Obviously, we've spoken before about sort of Italy's shortcomings and that not really being much of a game whenever any team has played them. But I think it's probably hit the headlines, not for the wrong reasons, but you go all the way back, especially as an Englishman, Jim, you go back to the Cowan-Dickey incident against Scotland. You then look at the Charlie Ewels incident at the weekend. And it's really hard to gauge with England sort of where they are, where they're at and what they've done. I thought Ireland would be the acid test, and obviously as soon as Ewels gets sent off, it's then international level playing with 14 men. You can never get a real gauge. So from an English point of view, it's hard to know where the team's at and where they actually are. But from a tournament point of view, France have been unbelievable to watch. Ireland, that first game against Wales, really set the tone, didn't it? Unbelievable performance from them. And again, teams like Wales, we wrote off at the start after that Ireland performance, but they've proven that, they're still a pretty decent team and can hang in there. And, the Scots do what they always do, Jim, which is promise a lot and deliver a little. So it's been a good tournament. I've really enjoyed it. And this weekend, obviously, Super Saturday is going to be a quality watch.
Yeah, it absolutely is. There's a few things that you've said there. Let's just start. I said I wasn't going to start on England, but let's just get a few lines on this English team. Freddie, you're well equipped to talk about them. A lot of the players are playing in your team. You've obviously been through the system yourself, and you play in the Premiership where all the players play. What does this championship look like for England if we think how it's going to unfold? So we think at the weekend, let's just say Scotland pick up a point in Ireland and say England come away with nothing in France and they end up finish 5th again. I know this has been spouted about this week and we are going over old ground for people that are interested or not interested in this subject, but England finishing 5th, Freddie, again, for the second year running, let's just set the scene. England, they've got the biggest playing pool, they've got the biggest budget apparently, they've got all the resources under the sun, and we can all make excuses. Any team in the Six Nations can make excuses. Italy can make an excuse to why they lost against Ireland going down to 12 men. Scotland could say they were hard done by the referee on some of the decisions. So excuses aren't going to cut it. If England finish 5th again, what do you think? What do you think the general feeling is around England rugby?
Well, it's not good enough, is it, Jim, really, when you put it like that? There has been, like I said, you could talk about excuses, incidents, all that sort of stuff, but 2 years in a row, finishing 5th won't be good enough. I don't think England will panic. I don't think Eddie Jones really cares about the external perception of media and stuff like that. They'll be, pretty solid in their internal group. I thought that man on the TV, on the picture at the minute, Ellis Genge at the weekend, was unbelievable. And they'll almost take pride and take a lot of positives from how they hung in that game against Ireland at the weekend, given everything that happened. So it's not good enough on a whole. Where it leaves England, they're not going to sack Eddie Jones. Eddie Jones isn't going to walk from the job. I don't think that's going to happen until after the World Cup. But they are going to have to look at themselves and, or you could, but Jim, it's so odd. I'm sat now and you can argue that Ireland and France are peaking too early, mate. You can have these arguments, Jim. It's like. But
Fred, I need to stop you there. I need to stop you there on the peaking too early, because I want to get your gauge of this, being a player. I've played in 8 or 9 Six Nations championships. And what I found really weird was around this peaks and being primed for World Cups. All the talk of these 4-year cycles on a World Cup, right? Where I believe the Six Nations is a standalone tournament. It is a standalone tournament. So what I believe is true. My point being is we can hide behind. I think coaches can hide behind. We're on this 4-year cycle. We're in transition. It's about the World Cup. What happens if you get to the World Cup and you don't make it past the quarterfinals? Then what are you saying the last 2, 3, 4 years before that? They've been completely wasted in terms of opportunity to win a championship. Now, this is just an opinion, and coaches, I'm telling you now, I've had coaches before that have hid behind that. Yeah. We're building. Okay, well, every team's building. We know that. But what is this all about around a World Cup? Like, England should do well in the World Cup, but really you've got the framework and you've got the resources and you've got the quality of players to do well now. And I understand there's always going to be a transition in terms of older players with experience who are world class going out and younger players coming in like Marcus Smith, Owen Farrell, your captain, being injured. But I just find that you even said that as well about the peaking and Ireland and France peaking now. Surely it's about peaking all the time, is it not?
No, Jim, listen, I don't disagree with your argument whatsoever. I guess when I say that, it's more the likes of having Randall at 9, Smith at 10. Do you know what I mean? Like whether this is their sort of first experience in it. Like you're dining at the top table of rugby. It's all about winning. It's England finishing 5th isn't good enough, but. Yeah, I don't know, mate. I do kind of feel like they should have done better, 100%. But the experience for like Randall Smith, those kind of guys coming in, Freddie Stewart in his first Six Nations, Eddie Jones will look at that and be like, right, these sort of youngsters we can almost build the team around over the next couple of years and move forward. Whether people believe in this whole cycles, peaking, and all that, of course, I think coaches have hid behind it in the past. But England's relative inexperience in key positions, I wouldn't say is an excuse because they still should win. They're England rugby, no matter who gets picked. But I think with the relative inexperience there is an argument to say, another year or two down the line of international rugby, this squad could be, challenging. But mate, it's a matter of opinion, isn't it, Jim?
Of course, no, Freddie, you're absolutely right. All them things you've said then, they're true and they're correct, and the experience that these players get. And my point being, it's just around coaches set the narrative around a World Cup 4-year cycle, and it's more a bugbear what I had playing for Scotland. We had Andy Robinson in charge, and everything was about the World Cup. I was like, but there's a good chance that we won't make it out of the group. So why are we putting all our eggs in the basket in 2 years' time when we should be living in the now? Anyway, I digress. It's not about.
But just quickly on that, I did read an interesting point though, where you never hear the All Blacks talk about cycles, do you? Really, they never talk about transition. They just you come in. There's a certain standard. They hit it, they deliver or they don't. And I think, like you say, mate, they either, in the Northern Hemisphere, we kind of hide around it a little bit, but I think you don't really hear of that in the Southern Hemisphere teams necessarily, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, I heard around the All Blacks, again, it's all hearsay, all rumours. I love a little bit of rumours, especially when it's about the All Blacks, because it's a closed shop. You don't hear too much about it. But apparently their succession plan, they've got like 2 cycles, let's say it. They've got 2 cycles of transition if you use the World Cup. So they've got the 2 World Cups, 8 years, and they've got the coaches, they've got the analysts, they've got the players, they've got this framework. They can just slot people in and they can kind of read it before it happens, almost like a Moneyball scenario. And everyone's speaking about the World Cup, of course, because we're excited as we come to the end of the Six Nations. The World Cup's around the corner. New Zealand are a team, regardless of performances, losing to England, losing to Ireland, losing to France, that they're a team where they're still spoken about as winning the World Cup. So whatever cycle or whatever transition they've been on. But Freddie, just in that England team, while we're talking about it, you mentioned Ellis Genge there. I thought he literally, I know they lost. I know we feel as if England, there was a victory. They had the highest defeat against Ireland ever at the weekend. Ireland got a bonus point, but some players stood up, and your teammate Ellis Genge has stepped up for club. It hasn't transferred completely. I mean, it's transferred, but I'm saying at world class at club level hasn't transferred into world class for England until of late. My point being, I thought his performance at the weekend, that is him now cemented in the number 1 jersey for England going forward. What did you make of him?
Mate, I completely agree with that. I think I've even said it about Genge. I think at international level, I always seen him as like an impact player. There's always players, Jim, and you've played with them, against them, that are good on the bench. There's players that can sit on the bench and come on and make an impact. There's players that start. And I always saw Genge as someone that you want on the bench because of the impact he gives you. He can be monumental. Whereas at the weekend was the first time I looked and said, he is the cornerstone of the English scrum now for the foreseeable. And I thought, he's an unbelievable player anyway. But I think it was different, wasn't it? It was just a different level. The way he went to that Ireland scrum, his ball carrying around the pitch, like when he wants to move, mate, the kid can move, and he's unbelievable. So I think that's him now, in that position, wearing that shirt for a long time off the back of that performance, and he deserves it because he works hard. Like I said, he's done his time being in that squad and being a bit on the bench and coming on, and now he's just stepped right up and he looks class.
Yeah, absolutely. You might not be able to answer this question, and maybe I can give you a little bit of help, but I don't think I've got the answers as well. But around the second row, that seems to be an area where we are slightly thin, and an area which England have been so strong in recent years across the board. I think second row, is there any other question marks? The centres maybe as well, Fred, where, again, if we speak about the World Cup, right, let's use that as the future for England, and they want to have it all sorted out by then. Do you think we've learned anything? I know we've got 1 game to go, but when you look at that England team, has anyone cemented their place, or is it still up for grabs?
I think I think for England, like you said, the second row is a bit of an issue, I think, or not an issue, but it's not maybe as strong as it has been in recent years. And then for me, it's for years England have hung their hat on Manu, and we all know when Manu's fit, he goes straight into that team because he's one of the best players in the world. But he's not been fit for a while now, and I think soon as you miss him, you look at Ireland, the way they use Bundiaki, you look at France, the way they use Dante, like you need a little bit of punch in the centre, and I think maybe that's where England might have come a little bit unstuck in this Six Nations. Is I love the Slade in the centres. Who's there this week? Marchant's going to be in there this week.
Yeah, Fred, I was just going to say, can you see the team? It's just been announced as we're on here, mate. So Marchant's at 13. I don't know if you knew that before. Slade at 12, and Furbank. Is that Freddie Stewart on the wing? Is it?
Yeah, Freddie Stewart on the wing. Yeah. Interesting, mate. Freddie Stewart's played on the wing for us, but for me, that tells me that they're going to go and try and kick France to death. You know, whether I remember this year I didn't play in the game, but as a Leicester Tigers team, we went to Bordeaux and they were big. You know, Bordeaux probably emulate the way France play a little bit in terms of that big pack offloading running game and that balance. And we went there and sort of kicked the lever off the ball and sort of strangled them down there. So whether England will go for a similar sort of game plan and put Freddie on the wing to go and get those balls, I don't know. But to go back to my point, I just feel like it's a nice backline that for England, or a nice centre partnership, but it lacks that little bit of real sort of grunt and go forward and punch. And you know, the wingers aren't really big ball carrying wingers either, are they? You know, you see certain teams have those big boys they could give the ball to a Van der Merwe at Scotland, for instance. And then because of that, if you're not getting boys on the front foot and over the game line directly, your guys like Slade and Randall become not non-existent, but it's a lot harder. Whereas you get those boys over the game line and on the front foot, they're a different gravy. But it is an interesting England backline. Furbank has gone well. He's a good player.
He's been playing 10. He's been playing 10 all year, though, has he?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why it's an interesting decision. I'm just trying to sort of calculate it in my head at not what he's done to be there, because he's a quality player, but he's been playing a lot of 10 for Saints in the last couple of months. So an interesting call, but maybe Eddie's seen something that we haven't.
That's what I mean, Eddie, and you know what? I do like Eddie. I like the way he is. He's his own man. He does his own thing. I was with Chris Ashton. We were filming a documentary, Rugby Roots, in Wigan over the last couple of days. It was phenomenal. And just seeing Ashy talk about Eddie Jones and the way that his mind works and the way that he manages the players and takes all the heat off, all the stuff we kind of know. But it was just really nice to hear Chris Ashton talk about that. But just, you know, for the people tuning in, and we're just getting this team now. So Will Stewart's going to start at tight end, which obviously means Carl Sinclair's injured. Sam Underhill comes in for Tom Curry at number 7, which I think is a great call. Youngsy's starting at 9 ahead of Randall. We've not got the bench just yet. The producers might end up putting that back up. But does that give you a snapshot, do you think? I know we're trying to work out the psyche of Eddie Jones, but do you think Wales showed us a potential weakness in the French team around the kicking game, especially with their back three? Penaud's back for France, who is a world-class player. My mate's involved in the Moneyball thing around rugby, trying to identify, well, he says he is, the best players in the world, and he said that Damien Penaud is the best player in the world. But the way that Wales played against France is clearly the only way that England can go. That's the only way they can go in Paris. Do you think Youngsy starting at 9 kind of shows that with his kicking game?
I think so, mate. I think the kicking game at the weekend, I thought that game on Friday night down in Cardiff, I thought France in the first 20 minutes, their kicking game was unbelievable. Like, so good, found grass, went long. I can never say his name, mate. What's the fullback's name for France?
Jalon.
I can never.
Jaminet. No, Jaminet.
Mate, honestly, sorry.
What did I say? What did I say? Jalonge.
Chaminade, right. I'll pull you out from under the bus there, Jim. I'll let you take the ball for not knowing his name. Honestly, the way he kicks a ball is just, I don't know whether you get it, Jim, being a second row, but for me, being a kicker, you can just appreciate a very aesthetically pleasing kicker. And he kicks the ball well. But for the first 20 minutes, they kicked well. They scored that unbelievable try. And I thought, oh, here we go. This is going to be a classic French sort of game, open, lots of tries. They're going to run away with it. And suddenly, Wales started winning the kicking battle. bigger. It started when I think it was Untermatt caught the ball outside the 22 off the pitch, ran it back in and took the quick line out. And suddenly it sort of changed and France become a bit edgy. So I reckon England have seen that as a weakness and also as a sign of respect for the French that, look, you're not gonna outpower the French. You're probably not going to out-finesse them with the skill set they've got and just the confidence that they're playing with at the minute. So I think you're going to see a heavily kicking dominant game from England. Interesting enough, Jim, I'm just looking at the bench here. So Sinclair's on the bench.
Yeah, but he must have. I don't know. Yeah, but I think he probably not trained all week. So he's probably doing his HIA protocols and gone back in. But they've gone for a 5-3. I think France have gone a 6-2 on the bench as well. So.
Yeah, so they've gone Dolly, Marler, Sinclair, Chesham, Don Brandt, Randall, Ford, Daly. So it's kind of what you expect, really, isn't it, with the starting team that they've picked. But it'd be an interesting game. I think it is going to be a heavily kicking, dominant display from England, and that's the only way I see France losing at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a line on this French team then. Chat to Sean Edwards in the week as well. Their game against Wales, they had a few issues there. There was illness in the camp. Romain Taufik-Fanua was away with COVID. He's back on the bench for France. Dupont picked up an injury. But how impressed were you with the resilience in this French team, having played against many French teams, Fred, in the past, as have I? There could have been 1,000,001 excuses why they lost that game in Wales, but they managed to come through and they actually come out the other side looking like a champion team.
I think that's it, Jim. You just hit the nail on the head there with the fact that they, we know when they're on song that they can mix it and beat anyone. But like I say, they had the screw turn against them after about 20 minutes and they were on the back foot for a long time, but they showed a resilience. I mean, what Sean Edwards has done to their D has been unbelievable. And I was talking, I can't remember, I was talking to someone about it the weekend. For me, and you'll get this as well, Jim, is for me, like, defence is a very simple, like, you don't need to overcomplicate the defence. What you need is you need a buy-in from the players. And a lot of that is buying into a coach. I look at Leicester, the fact that the boys buy into a Kevin Sinfield because he's a bloody good bloke. He puts himself in dark places for his mate. He puts himself in an uncomfortable situation. You go, I'll buy in. And I think that's one thing you've got to take your hat off to Sean Edwards with. For an Englishman to go over to France and, people like to sort of have a bit of a giggle about the sort of him speaking French and all that sort. But I tell you what, he's done it, and the boys have probably looked at him, the French boys, and gone, well, to be fair, he's come over here, he's given it a crack, and they've bought in, mate. And it's invaluable.
Yeah.
And the way that they, should Wales have finished a couple of opportunities? You probably think, yeah. But that French scramble D was unbelievable. You only get that from a collective buy-in to a coach and to a course. So for me, it wasn't a typical French display. I reckon in the last few years, they would have lost that game by being a bit disinterested, but they hung in there and they won it. How do you find it, Jim? Obviously, Audrey, I was a bit off when he with illness. I felt like when he dropped that ball, he wasn't quite the same Audrey that we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. You could see they were a little bit off, couldn't you? I didn't realise they were ill in the lead-up. I think that came out after, but I think France needed that game not to resettle them, but it's been quite easy for them, hasn't it, so far in the tournament? Yeah. I know the game against Ireland was a bit stuffy, but it's kind of refocused them. Can you imagine the camp this week if they're all better and the energy levels are a lot higher, and they've got Le Crunch in Paris on Saturday night, 8 o'clock UK time? Just imagine the energy in that. And we've all been talking about France for years. France get it right if they can get fit, if they can get the right people in the room. If Fabien Galtier is the main coach now, Sean Edwards comes in, then they're the team. They are the team. With the way that their under-20s went a few years ago, and you were hearing rumours of these young superstars coming through. Well, it's here. It's now. And I enjoyed that game against Wales on Friday. I think it shows that Wales are still in it. Wales are still a team that can compete at the highest level when the pressure's on. But it's all about France, I think, this week because of what I've just said. The fact that it's in Paris, the Sean Edwards effect, the Dupont, the World Player of the Year, and rightly so, there's no player touching him. But I think my question is, Fred, and I think it is a one-line question from me. Now we're on this game. What do England need to do to beat France? I mean, is there any way that they can beat France?
Good question. I think I think England can beat France. I actually think that they're due a performance. England. I think there'll be a lot of pent up motivation from the fact that not that they've been dealt bad hands. They've dealt themselves bad hands by the Cowan-Dickey incident round one, the Charlie Ewels incident against Ireland, and I feel like there'll be a lot. Right, let's go out and let's prove a point, and also just have nothing to lose. No one's expecting England to go there and win. I think, like you say, they'll have a heavy kicking dominant display, but if the game gets loose, England do have a pretty quick loose backline there. That said, mate, if France show up, I don't think anyone in the world beats France. So
yeah, we'll just look at that team, Freddie, just as we're going through, producer. If we can keep that team on the screen, Cyril By, the man on screen, tell me there's a better looser in the world. Well, Ellis Genge ain't far behind, but he is behind. Yeah. Marchand, overball, unbelievable. Willie Antonio, unbelievable tight head prop. Cameron Wookie didn't play that well against Wales, struggling in the line-out. Paul Willemse, Sean Edwards said he's a line-out leader. Him and Taufik Fanura, who's on the bench. Just big, unbelievable human beings. Jalonch, who I said was at fullback, he's not. He's at 7. He probably can't play fullback. Gregory Aldrit for me is the leading number 8 in the world at the minute, hands down. The size of him, the power, the work rate that he gets through both sides of the ball. Dupont, best player in the world. Intimat, we know exactly. I mean, the guy on the wing, Villieri, Gabin Villieri. My goodness me. I mean, he's come from nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. And you look at the team, right? Fiku, as we know, the experience that he's got. Dante's been phenomenal. Damien Penno comes back in. I said the money ball scenario. One of the best players in the world. Jaminet at 50. We've gone through his kicking game. Yeah. I don't think there's a better team on the planet.
No, mate, it's ridiculous. Jim, quick question. So, who will call the line out to the weekend?
Marrow.
No, for France.
Oh, well, this is the thing. I'm not too sure what they'll do about it because Wookie was obviously calling them at the weekend. They didn't go well. Sometimes they'll put it in the number 8, into the number 8's hands in Aldrit, but he's a carrying 8. Yeah. So it'll be Wookie. It'll be Cameron Wookie that calls it again. But I don't think we'll see. I think that must have had something to do with the illness. Their line out. Yeah. That's one of the things to switch off in terms of time and in terms of just get in and get out. Yeah. So I think the French line out, you'll see a significantly better line out on the weekend.
You think England see an opportunity there, though? Get the ball off the pitch and tuck into the line out, or do you reckon that was just a one-off for France?
I think that's the only way. I mean, I've asked you the question. I think the only way to beat France is get the ball off the pitch. Kick the ball so high up in the air, take the crowd out of it, take the energy out of the crowd, get Stewart, as we know, who's phenomenal. That's probably why he's on the wing, because Youngsy's going to kick the ball so high up in the air. He's going to kick the ball so high up in the air that... Sorry, one of the kids has just come in. Who's Wookie?
He's a Star Wars character, isn't he? Isn't that what?
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, completely thrown me. Young Freya. We're talking about Freddie Stewart. That's why they got him in the team. But yeah, phenomenal under the high ball. So I think that's why he's probably in the team. And I think the only way England can win is by kicking the ball. So, Stefan Hoffman, France will show up, mate. Sorry. Look, I'm with you.
Yeah, I agree with that. If they show up, there's no point. Might as well all go home.
Exactly. And then this brings us on to the Irish game. So Jerry Cunningham, as an Irish fan, I hope England bring their physical game and kicking game to Paris, because the story around all this is, I know we'll reverse engineer it, and if England can beat France and Ireland beat Scotland, then Ireland win the championship. Yeah. And that brings us on to the second game. We've obviously spoken about the big game. Give me your prediction first, Fred, of the big game, the final game of the Six Nations on Saturday night, France-England.
Do you know what? I really hope that England bring, as an Englishman, I think they'll bring. I hope England bring like a short kicking game and get up in the air, a short contestable kicking game, and make an absolute dogfight of it. I can't see France losing, but it's either my head or my heart, and I'm going to go with my heart. I'm going to say England by 2. Jim. But my head says France by. I think my head says France by 9. Do you know what I mean?
See, I've got France by 6. I think it'll be a lot closer. I think 18-12 to France. And that seems about right. And for me, and this sounds ridiculous because England could finish 5th, that'll be a good outcome for England in terms of if they are looking forward with the young players that they've got, the change of positions. But I just think France went through that team. You look at England's team, they're not settled because you've got players coming in, you've got players shifted about, you've got Furbank coming in, he's not played. Nick Zickwa's back in the second row. You move Freddie Stewart out to the wing. You've got Marchand back at 13. You've got Will Stewart playing at tight head. There's just so many reasons to say how they can't be joined up. But I hope it's a close game. I like England. You know, they've got some really good young lads coming through, some absolute grafters. And
Jim, this might sound daft, but the more I think about that England team, I genuinely think they're going there with just like a one-off game plan. And I know every game plan shifts and changes and all that sort of stuff, but generally you have your principles that stay pretty similar the whole way through. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if England just go out there and throw something completely different out there. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the only thing.
That's what we see on screen. Fred, that's what they're getting on screen.
Yeah.
You don't see that. Kicks the balls.
Yeah. But it wouldn't surprise me if they went every kick short and high rather than like long and on, like all that sort of stuff. I just think you might see a different England to the one we expect, and it's just a case whether it works or not. That's the only reason when I look at that team. But hey, but let's move on. It'll be a hell of a game either way, I reckon, Jim.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it there. We can keep talking about it, couldn't we? We keep going around the houses. But I agree with you. I think the kicking game, I don't think it's going to be an absolute classic, but if France win, then it'll be a classic for them in Paris. The game before, Ireland versus Scotland in Dublin, a team in which Scotland, have struggled with over recent years. The headline out of that team, Freddie, look at Scotland's number 10.
I know, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
What's gone on there, Jim? Why, you know, Finn is what you'd call the talisman for Scotland, surely. So what do you reckon's gone on there? Struggled,
mate, the last 3 games. Like, really has. I say struggled in terms of he doesn't look himself. And it's a big call by Gregor, massive call by Gregor. Blair Kinghorn, I've commentated on Edinburgh this season. I didn't see him as a 10 before this year. And there was...
No, I didn't think was he a centre? I thought
he's played centre, but he's a 15 back 3. He's a back 3 player. That's where he's played for Scotland. That's where notoriously he's played at Edinburgh. 6'3", 6'4", quite Freddie Stewart-like in terms of his athleticism. But Gregor loves him at 10. Mike Blair loves him at 10. He's played really well at Edinburgh at 10, and it's a massive call. So for Finn, you know, that man there has got to be able to understand that his place in the game. Can you hear all that shouting or not?
What are you singing? It was Peppa Pig on.
Yeah, it's okay. It's absolute carnage in the Hamilton household. Apologies. Finn Russell there at 10. He's the one basically where we've put all our eggs in his basket. So in recent years, it's been about him. It's been about Hoggy. We knew about the relationship with Gregor. We've kind of felt that we got through that. You know, Finn's discipline's been an issue in recent games that we've spoken about and we've had to go through. And it's a big call by Gregor. And he said that this week it's not about Finn Russell being dropped, it's about Blair Kinghorn starting. So I think you look at that, it's a massive, massive call. In my opinion, Freddie, it feels like the right call. And I feel awful saying that because I love Finn. I love him. I love what he's done for Scotland rugby. I love his character. And I feel bad saying it. He's not been the same player, and maybe it is the rocket up his arse that he needs, and it shows that he isn't not droppable. I think there's one player in the team that is undroppable, and that's Hoggy at 15. And Hoggy, you know, you're always getting with Hoggy, you're getting 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 10 performance every game, every single game. With Finn, you're getting 10 out of 10, or you're getting a 6 out of 10. Yeah. And the last few games we've been seeing 6 out of 10s, and I think that there needs to be a shift, and also we need to know, speaking about the World Cup, going forward, that we've got another player that can do it. So Blair Kinghorn, I mean, it's all go.
What's that say? Why is Blair starting instead of Finn? Only God knows. You have a choice of a brilliant fullback or the Messiah. Mate, to be honest with that, and I get why Scottish fans will question it, but so as a 10, right, if you're behind a dominant pack week in, week out, you can consistently perform well. When you're not, when the pack is inconsistent around you, it's hard. And when you've got those maverick tendencies that Finn does, and he's become so central to everything good about Scotland over the last few years, you play Scotland, you go stop Finn. Do you know what I mean? You get parity, your pack the Scotland pack isn't. It's a good pack. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't strike fear of God in you, does it, Jim? Is that a fair?
No, 100% right.
So it's almost like everyone's just going. I tell you what, it's similar to a couple of teams this year. You see Semi Radradra at Bristol this year. It almost seems like, lob him the ball and do something. And then when they don't produce, everyone goes, he's terrible. His head's gone. So for Finn, it might actually be a good thing, mate. And you never want to, as a player, you're never going to go, that's the right decision. However, I think there might be a case in 6 months or years down the line where they'll look back and they'll say dropping Finn for that last game was a good thing for both him and Scotland. I feel for him sometimes, just the fact that everyone expects him every time to touch the ball to do something, mate, and you can't do that. So
yeah, I think that is the thing, Fred. I think that there's an expectation around Finn because of the way that he plays and the way that he looks when he plays with a smile on his face, and this maverick tag that he's got. I actually spoke to Blair Kinghorn about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he spoke about the importance of Finn Russell in the team as well, Freddie, and just said, look, he's one of the most hardest working guys who's out there on the pitch, speaking to the players, helping Blair Kinghorn around his game as a 10, looking at different intricacies where players step off different feet, which time, how they kick the ball, where the charge down options are. So I think some of that gets lost a little bit around the hysteria around Finn. The fact that we're even talking about it now being such a big thing, because it is. It's you could say that Finn Russell, along with Stuart Hogg, are the 2 best rugby players Scotland have ever produced, ever. And we don't make them like that, but like Greg has said, it's all about Blair Kinghorn because of his performances. He couldn't travel to Italy. I think he would have played. They put Adam Hastings on the bench. I think they would have played Blair Kinghorn against Italy. He couldn't travel for personal reasons. There was a few rumours around that. But you know what? It's like, are you throwing him to the wolves slightly? Does that mean you have nothing to lose because you're playing against Ireland, a team in which, we've not beaten over there since 2010 when I went over there, Croke Park. So, like, why not? I mean, the big chat will be around, well, why not Adam Hastings? He was on the bench against Italy. Is he injured? Gregor doesn't seem to like him that much. And they love Blair Kinghorn. They love him. They love his athleticism. Mike Blair did an interview a couple of weeks ago and said that he could be a world-class 10. So there's clearly a lot riding on that. I think they're hoping that he comes through and he's got an opportunity up against Ireland. So,
do you think there's a little bit as well, though, Jim, where like, Scotland kind of there's nothing really on this game for Scotland, really. I know there's every time you put on the international jersey and represent your country, there is something on it. But do you think it's kind of like a shot to nothing to put a Blair Kinghorn in and say, look, let's just go out there, see what you can do, and almost playing in a big game, but also a no kind of pressure game for Scotland?
I think so. I think I look at Scotland. I can't work out. Well, I can work out. But I don't know what to make of the team at the minute. They're not playing that well. We have to speak frankly, and I hate saying that because they're my team. I like the players. I love the coaches. I love everyone involved with the union. I think they've done a fantastic job in the last couple of years to get us at a level of competing. The Edinburgh are doing well, Glasgow are doing well, but you have to say it how it is. If we lose to Ireland, and the likelihood is that it does look that way, unless we can do something which we've not done in 12 years, and do something that we have done in recent years, which is have a one-off unbelievable performance. Yeah. Now, it's not impossible for Scotland to win this game. Scotland, if they have the best game that they've had under Gregor Townsend, we can win, and we've got the ability to do that. You've got to think of recent years, right? We beat France last year in the Six Nations, beat England at Twickenham, beat England this year, beat Australia in the autumn. Do you know what I mean? We beat big teams, but Ireland are a team that we struggle against because of the power game that they play. So it's going to be tough. I don't really know what to make of Scotland at the minute. I don't know how you evaluate the Six Nations. You look at the way the games have been for them. They had England at home, always going to get up for that. England are a team that aren't playing very well at the minute. They're a team that have only beat Scotland 1 in 5. Right, so we beat them, good. Wales away from home, the expectation. Didn't play that well. Finn didn't play that well, got sinned in. Discipline was poor. We only lost by 3 points. France, well, they're the best team in the world at the minute. We got hammered. So it's one of them where, how do you look at it? Italy, we beat them comfortable. And I don't know, is how I'm saying. Just quickly, Freddie, on this Ireland team, if Ireland can beat Scotland and France lose to England, everyone in Ireland will be wearing England shirts forever, will they? Or at least for a few days to celebrate. What do you make of this Ireland team? Sexton back at 10. They've got Matt Hanson's in on the wing for Conway, who's out. You think off the back of the weekend with their performance, albeit their record win at Twickenham, but the scrum didn't function that well. They were a bit inaccurate around their handling ability. What do you reckon?
Yeah, mate, I think it was a decent enough performance, got the job done at the weekend. You can't underestimate either how, as soon as the team goes down to 14 men, everyone thinks, right, you'll just run through. And they had to grind that England team down. And again, we've touched on it before, with the set piece not going to plan. They got dragged into a bit of an arm wrestle, but they come through it. So they'll be looking to put on a show. I love the way they mix their power game up with their passing play. They look good when Sexton's in the team. I know Carberry's played a few games early on, but undeniably a miles better team when Sexton's at 10. So they'll be looking to put on a bit of a clinic and finish strong and probably try and get all 5 points just to put that pressure on France. Because, Jim, I don't know about you, but obviously I've never been in this situation. All due respect, I think you at Scotland haven't been in this situation either. But will there be a case of France knowing the score before they go out against England or not? So will Ireland say, which is the Ireland game? The first one or the second one? Second.
Yeah, second game, and then so I think it's 4:45 UK time, and then it's the France-England game at 8 o'clock UK time. So look, we'll know, won't we? Ireland, let's say they beat Scotland with a bonus point. France need to win the game. That's it, full stop. Yeah. Otherwise, Ireland win it. So I think they will know. I don't think it matters in terms of the emotion in the lead up to them. They know that they need to win the game. So Ireland, a good championship. They're definitely a team that are not far away from doing something special under Andy Farrell. Just quickly, Freddie, before we go, big shout out to Alan Wynne-Jones. It's going to be starting again, 150th cap. 150th cap.
Mate, ridiculous.
And Dan Bigger on his 100th cap. I don't think we're going to see a shock against Italy, are we? You look at that team from Wales, very settled. And I think...
You feel bad, Jim, don't you? You feel bad because we've had almost 45 minutes of conversation about the Six Nations. And it's not a dig on Wales or anything like that, but people are probably watching going, why aren't they talking about... Well, it's a foregone conclusion against Italy, mate. There's no real point analysing or looking at it. One thing I will say, how good was Toby Faletau at the weekend? Hey, I know, teammate of mine at Bath, I'm well aware of his quality, but he's come back. He had a couple of games for Bath. He played in the Wales game before, and then I thought he was unbelievable at the week. Head and shoulders the best player in that Wales team. Well, Dan Bigger controlled the game well, but Jesus, Talupe's a hell of a player. So I thought he was class, but it'll be a foregone conclusion against Italy, mate.
It will do. It will do. We'd love to give them a little bit more time, but I think we need to focus on the Grand Slam decider in Paris. The Ireland-Scotland game, obviously I'll have eyes firmly on, and the Welsh and the Italian fans. If anything big happens in that game on Sunday, myself and Freddie on RugbyPass Fan Zone will chat about it. But for now, Freddie, we'll leave it there. You got a game at the weekend?
No, I'm at Cheltenham Races tomorrow, mate. The boys have got Newcastle away in the Prem Rugby Cup, so we've got an exciting young squad going up, which I'm excited to see how they go, mate. But I'll be down in Cheltenham having a little flutter.
Nice. Look for me on TV. I'll be over in Dublin covering that game against Scotland. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Hope you've enjoyed it. Leave some comments, and we'll see you on Sunday for the final review of the Guinness Six Nations 2022.